Shabbat Shalom, almost.
How are you?
I'm okay, thanks.
Yeah, sorry, I'm running a little late today.
Just
I'm gonna grab a seat or.
oh yeah.
Yeah, but you're doing good.
Yes, just lots of little this and that, but I'm here now.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
are you? Same?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know how it goes.
Yeah. I'm gonna lower this. It also depends on your access. Okay, I'll read it again. I'm not. Okay. Area of town or address? Sure, that's fine. Yeah.
Where do you want to do candle lighting?
Oh.
For Shalom Aleichem or?
Whichever way you want. I don't know. What do we can put it in?
I feel like the
usually do it.
later we can do it, the better. Because
Okay. How about 1 second? There. Yeah. But you know what? It might be
Only because I think.
right after Kiddush. No, they're all standing at that point. I don't know. I don't mind doing it anywhere else, but I'm trying to think of where's a good spot. After announcements and then that? Or does it feel like they feel like it's over?
Yeah, I think they feel like it's over then.
Yeah. Again, about Kaddish Alem.
I mean, maybe it's.
How about at the right after Aleinu, before you do the. No, because we call those people out.
I feel like we can. Because usually, where do we usually do it? It's like.
It's either before or after Shalom Aleichem. So usually after, but it's fluctuated.
Okay. I mean, we'll just do it then. That's fine.
Shavuot, nah. How about part of Kiddush? Because that's a part of the at home.
You know what? That's nice.
Like the start of it, and then turn it or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's, you know,
all right.
That's lovely.
Because it's part of it, right? Yeah.
It's
Okay.
good. I like it. And
Okay.
It's just pretty close to what's technically the earliest Shabbat time to start, so that's good. I like it.
Okay.
Elegant solution.
Yay.
Cantor. That's not better.
Bukhatiye. Okay. Water. Oh, I see. There. Agano Lizman, yeah or not?
Yeah.
Announcement or start? What do you want?
Oh,
Oh, sure. Oh, I know.
And then I'll do a little welcome.
Okay. I'll do. כל העולם כולו גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד, כל העולם כולו גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד. והעיקר לא לפחד, לא לפחד כלל. והעיקר לא לפחד כלל. כל העולם כולו גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד.
גשר צר מאוד, כל העולם כולו גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד. קורא העיקר והעיקר לא לפחד, לא לפחד כלל, והעיקר והעיקר לא לפחד כלל.
Nice major ending.
Yes, that's Bacardi third.
Shabbat Shalom and welcome to everybody. If I could give this Shabbat a theme, I would call it the extra Shabbat. And there's a few different reasons for that. One being that this is a fifth Shabbat that we have in the month, which is a little unusual, that we get 5 Shabbatot in a month. Number two, that we, in general, like every Shabbat, we talk about this neshama yetera, this extra soul that we hold on to. So the fact that we have an extra soul on this extra Shabbat compounds that. And then, as some of you may be aware, that tomorrow in the evening, we're going to have a blue moon, which is an extra full moon in the calendar month. We've had 2 full moons in the month of May. So there's a whole lot of extra happening this Shabbat, and I think it's an opportunity to embrace that, to embrace the extra that we're being given in this moment, that Shabbat brings in this enhanced soul on this extra Shabbat that we get to celebrate together as we prepare for an extra full moon. So that's a lot I think that we can hang on to and appreciate and enjoy together as we bring in Shabbat with one another. And to begin that, we will turn to page 5 for Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Asharet, Malachi Elyon, Mi Melech Malchi HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leShalom, Malachi Ashalom, Malachi Kadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni leShalom, Malachi Shalom, Malachi Elyon. Mi Melech Malchi HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem leShalom, Malachi Shalom, Malachi Elyon, Mi Melech Malchi HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
We turn now to page 11 for the Chun Ranana.
Yeah, give me a second here. I have to do something because of that. Okay.
Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena Adonai. Naria, naria, letzuri shenu, nekad ma'afana betoda. Naria, naria, letzuri shenu, bizmiron naria lo. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena Adonai. Lechu, 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 lechu neranena, lechu, 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 lechu neranena. Ki el gadol Adonai, umelech gadol al kol Elohim, asher beyado bechkere aretz, vetoafot ha'arim lo. Lechu, 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 lechu neranena, oh lechu, 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 lechu neranena. Asher lo hayam vehu asahu, veyabeshet ידיו יצרו, בואו נשתחווה ונכרעה, נברכה לפני אדוני עושנו. לכו 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 נרננה, לכו 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 נרננה, כי הוא אלוהינו ואנחנו אמר איתו וצאן ידו, היום אם בקולו תשמעו. לכו 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 נרננה, לכו 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 נרננה, אל תקשו לבבכם כי מריבה, כיום מסע במדבר, אשר ניסוני אבותיכם, בחנוני גם ראו פועלי. לכו 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 נרננה, או לכו 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 נרננה, 40 שנקו בדור ומערם טוען לבבם, לא ידעו דרכי, אשר נשבעתי באפי, הם יבואו על מנוחתי.
We turn now to page 21 for Mizmor LeDavid. And just a little over a week ago, many of us were together studying for the first night of Shavuot, and we studied about some of these fantastic legends around what it really was like to be at Har Sinai, at Mount Sinai, receiving the Torah. And it links very much with the psalm that we're about to sing, which is traditionally connected with that experience. There's a refrain over and over of Kol Adonai, right, the voice of God. And so our rabbis make the connection and say that this was a psalm that emerged from that experience of when we as a people heard God's voice in the giving of the Torah. And besides the legend that many of us studied together, there's another beautiful one which really talks about how with every dibur, with every one of the 10 commandments that were given in that moment, that the whole world was filled with a fragrance, a wonderful and beautiful fragrance, really kind of reflecting the impact of what was happening in that moment, that the world was being changed in some profound way. And so the whole world was filled with fragrance. So let's see if we can take some deep breaths as we sing and maybe see if we can smell some of that amazing fragrance that happened there in that moment that we celebrated just a week ago. Mizmor LeDavid, page 21.
לדוד הבו לאדוני בני אלים, הבו לאדוני כבוד ואור, הבו לאדוני כבוד שמו, ישתחוו לאדוני בהדרת קודש, כל אדוני על המים אל הכבוד ירים, אדוני על מים, מים רבים, כל אדוני בכוח, כל אדוני בהדר, כל אדוני שומר ארזים, וישבר אדוני את ארזי הלבנון, וירקידם כמו עגל לבנון, וסריון כמו בן רמי. כל אדוני חוסם להבות אש, כל אדוני יכיל מדבר, יכיל אדוני מדבר קדש, כל אדוני יכונן אילות, ויחסום יערות, ובחלום לא אומר כבוד. אדוני למה מול ישב וישב shalom. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. La, 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 la. Ya, la, 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 la. La, 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 ya, la, 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 la. Ya, la, la, la. Ya, la, 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 la. Ya, la, 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 ya, la, 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 la. La, 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 ya, la, 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 la. La, 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 ya, la, 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 la. Ya, la, 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 ya, la, 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 la. La, 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 yay, yay, ya, la, 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 la.
We turn now to page 23 for the Chadodi as we welcome together the Shabbat bride. We'll be singing together the first two stanzas on page 23 and then turn to page 25 for the final two stanzas.
שמור וזכור בדיבורך השמיענו אל המיוחד אדוני אחד ושמו אחד לשם ותפארת ולתהילה לך דודי נקרא קלה פני שבה נקבלה לך דודי נקרא קלה פני שבה נקבלה לקראת שבת לכו ונלחקים מכל הברכה מראש מקדם נעשוך סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה לך דודי נקרא קלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי נקרא קלה פני שבת נקבלה.
Page 25.
לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה ימין ושמאל תפרוצי ואת אדוני תריצי אני עד איש בן פרצי ונשמחה ונגילה לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצולה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה שבת שלום שבת שלום שבת שלום ומבורך.
You may be seated. And we turn now to page 27 for Psalm 92, the psalm for the Shabbat day.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון טוב להודות לאדוני Adonai, עלי עצור ולנבל, עלי היגיון בכינור, כי שימחתני אדוני בפעוליך, ועשי ידיך רנן. טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך העליון. טוב להודות לאדוני, טוב להודות לאדוני. נשבע לא ידע עושים לבים לפרוח רשעים כמו עז ולצלבו עליה בן אישה דמדיון. בקמים עלי מרעים תשמע לאוזני. צדיק אתה אמר יפרח כארז בלבנון, יזכה שתולים בבית אדוני בחצרות אלוהינו יבטיחו עוד ינובון בסבע דשנים ורעננים יהיו להגיד כי ישר אדוני צורי ולא עוולתה בו. ראי מלאך גאות לבש עדות תחננו מאוד לביתך נא בקודש אדוני לאורך ימים.
Chazak u'baruch Hazan. And again, I want to welcome everybody for this Shabbat. And another reason why I would give this Shabbat this theme of extra is the parashah that we read, which is Parshat Naso. And I'm curious, does anybody know why Parshat Naso is famous? It's actually famous for a few different reasons, but does anything stand out to people? It is too long. It is, in fact, the longest single parashah that we have. Sometimes we will double up parashiot, and in those cases, those are technically longer. But in terms of single parashiot, Parshat Naso is the winner by far. It also contains a real array of different mitzvot. It contains everything from Birkat Kohanim, which we still do to this day, right, in which the Kohanim are commanded to bless the people. It's understood actually by a number of commentators as a daily mitzvah, that the Kohanim are supposed to bless the people daily. So in Sephardic custom, that's what we do. We actually have that as part of the daily service. But it contains mitzvot about how to carry the ark, and it contains mitzvot about what to do if somebody is ritually impure, about how to make certain vows and oaths, about what to do when there is marital difficulties and how do you resolve those challenges. So it really contains a whole gamut. But the idea of extra is on my mind a lot because there is one mitzvah in which we see how our tradition struggles with this idea of extra or going above and beyond. On the one hand, it really honors that as a spiritual path in terms of having spiritual practices that are sort of beyond or more than what is required. And then it struggles with, is that ultimately a healthy approach to things? And the mitzvah that I'm talking about is the mitzvah of the Nazir, the Nazirite. And so just to give people an overview of what a Nazirite was, it was an individual who took a vow, an oath upon themselves for a set period of time. The most famous Nazirite is Samson, right, who actually we read about in the Haftarah, and he was a Nazirite for his whole life, but that was very unusual. To be a Nazir was usually for 30 days, right? So it was kind of like 1 month in which you took on these additional restrictions, and they were: you completely refrained from consuming wine. And not only did you refrain from consuming wine, you refrained from consuming any grape product whatsoever, just to really remove yourself from it. The second thing that you did was refrain from becoming ritually impure through contact with a dead body, which means that you were not part of burials, you were not part of mourning in the typical way, you were refraining from that. And the last thing that you would refrain from was from cutting your hair. And so your hair would just grow out for this period of 30 days. We actually have some famous cases in which people were a Nazir for 7 years or 14 years. You can imagine growing your hair out for that long. And during this period of time, an individual was considered to be extra holy. They were considered to be on the same level as a Kohen, right, a priest, or a Navi, a prophet. And it was accessible to anybody, though. Any person could take on this vow, and they had this holy status. At the end of the time period in which a person was a Nazir, they would come either, in the desert, they would go to the Mishkan, the tabernacle, or later on they would go to the temple, and they would have to bring a series of offerings. And this is where we hit the crux of our tradition really struggling with, is something like this a good idea? Because in describing the offerings that a Nazir would bring at the end of their time period in this, we know that one of the offerings they brought was a chatat, was a sin offering. So that in and of itself is interesting. Why, after doing this sacred, holy time in which you went above and beyond, did you bring a sin offering? And just to make it absolutely clear, the verse describes, "V'chiper alav me'asher chata al hanefesh," because this person has sinned against their own soul, is how the Talmud reads it. So here's the question. It is a sacred and holy status to be a Nazir, or to be a Nazirah. It is considered to be like a Kohen or a Navi, and yet at the end of it, we're told you've sinned against your own soul, and you actually have to bring a sacrifice for it. So, as is very typical for us, we have two commentators that take this in completely different directions. The first is Maimonides, and he says, yeah, the reason why, and he's doing this based on some passages in the Talmud, is because you denied yourself things that as a human being you should just be able to enjoy. And in Judaism, we don't approve of that. So the fact that we are typically allowed to drink grape juice or wine, and you didn't for this whole time period, that's actually not something we want to encourage. So sure, maybe there's a reason why you needed to do it, and that's understandable, but at the end of it, recognize you've done something wrong. You should not live this way typically. So that's Maimonides, right? Who's sort of like the king of moderation. This is his whole thing, right? We always walk the middle path. So to do something kind of extreme is a sin. On the other hand, we have, following the mystical tradition, Nachmanides says, no, you know what the sin is? The sin is you're ending this time period. Ideally, you live as a Nazir forever. Once you've had the chance to elevate yourself in that way, you should stay like that. And the fact that you don't, the fact that you end it after a certain time period, that is the chet, that is the wrongdoing. And that's why you have to bring a korban. So what do we do? Those are quite literally two completely contradictory understandings of taking on additional things, right, to achieve a spiritual status. So I think that one way of approaching this, and trying to resolve this a little bit, comes from a story that is told in multiple parts of rabbinic literature. And I think the story, this narrative, gives us a way to think about the Nazir and Nizirut in a way that maybe helps us understand ultimately how to approach these types of spiritual practices. We are told that Shimon HaTzadik, who was both a rabbi and a Kohen, so he had a really interesting perspective. He says, in all of my life as a Kohen, I watched all of these people who were Nazir come to the temple, and I watched them bring their sacrifices. I got to know all of them, and I got to hear all of their stories. Over the course of my life, do you know how many of these Nazirites I think actually understood and got it? One. And I'll tell you their story. He says it was a shepherd from the south who came, and this shepherd, I could see them coming, right, from the distance. They were beautiful. They had such a striking countenance, and they had the most voluminous, gorgeous, beautiful hair. And they approached and they explained, I'm finishing my vow of Naziriteship. And Shimon HaTzadik was taken aback, and he said, you're gonna cut all of that hair off? That sounds terrible. You are such a striking figure, and you're gonna now have to cut off all of your hair. What on earth would possess you to take on this vow, knowing you were gonna have to cut your hair at the end of it? And the shepherd says as follows. He said, I know, I was a shepherd in the south, and one day I was tending to the sheep, and I needed to go get them water. And I walked over to the well, and I went to dip my bucket in, and I saw my own reflection. And I saw that I was very beautiful. I saw that I have a magnificent head of hair. And in that moment, I was scared. And my yetzer hara, right, my inclination, right, the not best of my instincts, said you should try to remove yourself from the world as much as possible, lest something happen to your beauty. And he said, in that moment, I realized, but you know what, my beauty and who I am and what I am doesn't just belong to me. And I need to remind myself of that. So I'm going to take one of the things that makes me so beautiful, and I'm going to turn it into something of service. And so I'll take on the vow of Naziriteship, and at the end, I'll cut my hair and I'll give it as an offering, which is what the Nazirites did, to remind myself that yes, I have something special, but that doesn't mean I should close myself off from the world. I should figure out a way to turn it into something I can give as service. It's a pretty powerful statement from this Nazirite. So what is his answer then? What does it seem to be? So do we approve of such practices? Well, I think that the answer that comes from the story is it depends on what it does for us and what it does to us. Like this Nazir, is it the result of reflection? Is it coming to understand ourselves a little bit better? Is it the result of looking and seeing what makes us beautiful? What it is that makes us full of something special that only we have? And then does it take us one more step further to say, and that helps me understand what my calling is and what I need to stand up and do and turn those things that I can see more clearly now into something of service. To pursue spiritual practices that take us above and beyond is a noble and time-honored tradition. It contains a possible path up to glorious heights, to be like a Navi or a Kohen, right, a prophet or a priest. But it also contains potentially dangerous pitfalls. People have pointed out, by the way, the similarity between this story and the myth of Narcissus, which appear actually to have emerged around the same time, so for people that are interested in comparing those types of things. But we have a potential pathway very high up spiritually and a dangerous pitfall. The story of the shepherd Nazir reminds us that which way it goes depends upon our ability to use such practices to see who we are and what our calling is more clearly. Shabbat Shalom. We turn now to page 39a for the Baruch Hu, the call to worship for the evening service.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך המבורך לעולם ועד.
You may be seated.
אדוני מלך העולם. צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו, לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב הרבים.
Page 40, Ahavat Olam, timeless love, has God loved the people of Israel.
אהבת עולם, בית ישראל, עמך אהבת. אהבת עולם, בית ישראל, עמך אהבת. תורה, תורה, תורה ומצוות, חוקים חוקים ומשפטים אותנו לימדת. תורה, תורה, תורה ומצוות, חוקים חוקים ומשפטים אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך, נשיח בחוקיך. תורה, תורה, תורה ומצוות, חוקים חוקים ומשפטים אותנו לימדת. ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד, לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, והם נגי יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. תורה, תורה, תורה ומצוות, חוקים חוקים ומשפטים אותנו לימדת. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. ואהבת מאודיך. ברוך אתה וזובתך ושעריך הם היו, והים שמות השם וצאת ישר אנוכי אצלך לאהבה. ושמתם את דברי אלי על לבבכם אשריכם אותם לראות. ויאמר אדוני השם מורדה בני ישראל ומתה עליהם מסולים ציצית. ולא תטור על לבבכם אז זו אימן תזכר. אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
We turn now to page 44 from Mi Chamocha.
ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ומרים ובני ישראל לכנו שירה בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך נדר בקודש נורא תהילות אוסף אלה מלכותך ובניך בוקע ים לפני משה זה עלינו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר כי ודע אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מאיר חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גן ישראל.
We turn now to page 45, Hashkivenu. Allow us, Adonai our God, to sleep peacefully and awaken us to life.
השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום לשלום ועמידנו מלכנו לחיים לחיים ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך 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 תתקננו בעצה טובה לפניך לפניך והושיענו למען שמך והגן בעדנו ויסר מעלינו אויב דבר וחרב ורע ויגון השכיבנו לשלום שלום ויסר שטן מלפנינו לפנינו לפנינו ומאחרינו אחרינו 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 ובצל כנפיך תסתירנו 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 כי אלה שומרנו 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 ומצילנו אתה כי אל המלך חנונה ורחום אתה השכיבנו השכיבנו לשלום שלום ושמור צאתנו בואנו לחיים ושלום יתן לנו לעם ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך ברוך אתה אדוני הפורס סוכת שלום עלינו וכל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים.
I invite you to rise as we turn now to page 46 for Vishamaru. And in the last line, right, we talk about Uvayom Hashivri'i Shavat Vayinafash, that Adonai made the heavens and earth and on the seventh day ceased from work and rested. There's a beautiful understanding of that phrase that I'd love for us to read together before we sing Vishamaru. It's in the margin there on the left-hand side in the upper hand of page 46, Vayinafash, so if we can read together. Do not read Shabbat as a verb, but as the subject, the day of Shabbat, and do not construe the verb vayinafash as rested, but rather as refreshing souls. Thus, the phrase may be read as, Shabbat refreshes all souls. What is Shabbat compared to? It is like a fountain in the midst of a garden. When the fountain flows, the entire garden flourishes.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבה וינפש. יגדל ויתקדש שם רבה, גלמה דיברה כאילו תבמליך מלכותה, בחייכון ויום יכול, ובחי דכל בית ישראל, בגלה בגלה, ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ותדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמך דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תמירן בעלמא וימהרו אמן.
The Amidah can be found beginning on page 47. I invite you to use the words of the Siddur and or your heart as we enter into this moment of private contemplation and devotion.
עושה שלום עם אלוהיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל.
We turn now to page 53 from Magen Avot.
מגן אבות מדברו מחיה מתים ממאמרו, האל הקדוש אין כמוהו. לילה 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 המניח לימו ביום שבת קודשו, היווה רצה להניח להם, לפניו נעבוד ברם ופחד, ונודה לשמו בכל יום תמיד. לילה 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 מעונה ברכות הן להודעות, אדון השלום מקדש השבת, וברך שביעי ומניח בקדושה, לעמד ושני עונג זכר למעשה בראשית. לילה 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 לילה
We continue on page 54 with Kaddish Shalem.
יגדל ויקדש שמר רבה, ילמד יברא קילותי ונך מלכותי, וחייכון ויומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה בזמן קריב מרו, אמן. ישמר רבה מברך, לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויפאר ויתרומם וינשא ותדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי וקדשה בריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמא אמרו אמן. תתגבר שפתי הון ובת הון דכל ישראל קודם אבו הון וישמעיה אמרו אמן. יש לומר רבה משמעיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל אמרו אמן. עושה שלום ממרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן.
And I invite you now to rise. We're going to light Shabbat candles and recite Kiddush. You can find the Kiddush when we get to there on page 55. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei bria gefen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kideshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'yavach v'ratzon inchilanu tzikra l'maseh v'reshit tachila l'mikrei kodesh zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim v'shabbat kodshecha b'yavach v'ratzon inchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai
Shemo
Mekadesh HaShabbat.
those who remember Mrs. Cunningham from the, what was that show? Happy Days, where someone asks her about the wine. What year is it? She goes, oh no, don't worry, it's fresh. I feel like that's the case with our wines.
Goodness, I think definitely. And as we are all standing together, we will now chant together Aleinu on page 56.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל עמונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, אשר בארץ. על כן נקבל אחד אלוהינו. כי המלכות שלך היא, ולעולמי עד תמלוך. כי המלכות שלך היא, ולעולמי עד תמלוך בכבוד. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. In the past weeks, we were saddened to learn of the passing of Stephen Bloomstein, Zichrono Livracha, and Marvin Wolfson, Zichrono Livracha. And I'll invite now everybody who is reciting Kaddish for a yahrzeit or who are in mourning to please rise. And we'll take a moment just to hear the names of the individuals who we are remembering this evening. We recite together Mourner's Kaddish on page 58. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shmei Rabbah, be'alma divera kirute v'yamlich machute, b'chayechon uvyamechon uvchaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Ye'ei shmei Rabbah mevarach la'alam u'me'elamaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yit'aleh v'yit'alal shmei d'kudsha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiram be'alma v'imru amen. Ye'ei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru amen. Yehu zichronam livracha, may their memories be for a blessing. You may be seated. As we enter into the month of June, we have some wonderful ways to connect with the community. On June 3rd, which is a Wednesday, we have the Interfaith Sisters in Unity, one of the important interfaith initiatives that we have. So if that is of interest, please get in touch with the office who can give you more information. And starting next Friday, we have our first Shabbat on the Plaza. That's right, correct? Which is going to be Shabbat on the Plaza, a taste of roses. So it feels really nice to be able to be coming into that time of year together. On Shabbat day, the following day, we have Tot Shabbat services as well as Kiddush Club, opportunities for our young ones to participate in services really designed for them. So that's for this upcoming week, but be looking out an email for other opportunities coming up this month, and we will,
Tomorrow
yes,
also
please.
we have, today's the parasha, tomorrow is Naso, and it speaks about Gershonites. And the bar mitzvah boy tomorrow is Daniel Gershon.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's great.
yeah, it works out very well.
Oh,
So from now on, we're only
I love
going to
that.
give the parasha where someone has a
You've got the
name from
name
some.
match, oh, sure.
Yeah, and there's also a downstairs minion as well tomorrow, if I believe, if I'm
Yes,
correct.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's the
absolutely,
case.
yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So, yeah.
And we will conclude together now with Yigdal on page 62.
I'm going to do a Sephardic one. I don't know the guitar.
Oh, good.
יגדל אלוהים חי וישתבח נמצא ונטל מציאותו אחד ואין יחיד כייחודו נעלם וגם אין סוף לאחדותו אין לו דמות הגוף ואינו גוף לא נערוך אליו קדושתו כאן מול לכל דבר אשר נברא ראשון בין ראשית לראשיתו הינו אדון עולם וכל נוצר יורה גדולתו ומלכותו שפע נבואתו נתן נואל אנשי סגולתו ותפארתו לא קם בישראל כמו שעוד נביא ומביט את תמונתו תורת אמת נתן לעמו אל על יד נביאו נאמן ביתו לא יחליף האל ולא ימיר דתו לעולמים לזולתו צופה ויודע סתרנו מביט לסוף דבר בקדמתו גומל לאיש חסד כמפעלו נותן לרשע רע כרישתו ישלח לקץ ימין משיחנו לפתות מחכה-קץ ישועתו מתים יחייל ברוב חסדו ברוך עדי עד שם תהילתו.
Chazak Baruch, Shabbat Shalom.
Ooh, that's a nice one.
אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו על נטילת ידיים.
Amen.
אין יכול אליך יסודנו ואתה נותן להם את אוכלם בעיתו כעמוד פותח ידיך ומשביע לכל רצון. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם המוציא לחם מן הארץ.
Amen. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. What's that? Challah Lavan, yes. It was a beautiful looking challah. I felt earlier like singing, what's that song? Blue moon, I saw you standing.
It is. This is an official blue moon.
That's right. That's pretty. Bluish.
Bluish moon.
Bluish Jewish.
Bluish Jewish. Right. I think I've got the last slicing done here. Please come and enjoy some challah. Shabbat shalom. I could cut some smaller if you like.
Picture of a video of Natalie.
Absolutely.
It was like a slide.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
I don't know either.
I don't actually know either.
So I went down, sat down,
That's very gracious.
started sipping my tea, and
I'm pretty
they
much.
brought me my banana.
More than
So you're saying something about
you're allowed to more on Lisa.
There you go. It's like extras in the air. Shabbat Shalom. Baruch Tiyah. Oh, please, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I think they have to explain that to us. So, yeah. Like,
Put it inside.
yes. That was pretty good. Yes, it's not fishy. Yeah, because Emma had the snorkel skin wrap. I think that doesn't even feel like. Yeah, there was no communication about what's in the dash though. So. Yeah. Anyway, that was a rookie mistake. I did not. I didn't know teenagers would have because they were younger when they pulled that. Yeah, now it just causes fights. No, it's fine. I just Yes. It is really very sweet. I know. I'm so happy that. Yeah. So. Yeah. Likewise. Yes. Yes. I can.
Shabbat Shalom.
Well, nice to meet you. Yeah. Shabbat shalom.
It's somewhere in October. Oh my God, it's so
Oh yeah, the second I saw
You're a Rush fan as well? That's it. Yeah.
And so, and this was the case initially.
Yeah, yeah.
There was no other one at all.
Yeah, even getting him was like, I'm so tired of all this. Just like, he's like, by the time we finish, I don't care.
Everybody's on you. Amazing. Are they also from another Canadian? Okay.
And then, say once like suburb, I don't know if it was downtown or what part, or I can find that out. And so I had to go back.
I'm
How do
sure
you
I
get somebody from Beaverton makes a different Portland?
First
Yes.
semester,
And I've heard them talk about it because I have no notion of the geography. Like, it's just, like Aaron and I are gonna go. Yes. We're gonna go see them on the tour.
a different reason, so it's
It's a
actually
totally-
related
it's a
to.
totally different
It's
reason. Okay.
related to the fact that like Shabbat Shalom. Oh,
remember
yeah, yeah, yeah. That with trees, you don't take any of their produce, right, until their fourth year, and then those are special. You used to take them to Jerusalem, and then in their fifth year, you can probably, you can just take the harvest of the tree. So like, since like a child's like a new growth, right, like a growing tree, the same way you don't take the fruit from the tree for the first few years, that tradition is to not cut it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fascinating, right?
My idea was in the parsha that the sin is both the ending of it and the fact that you've been doing it for that long.
Oh, interesting.
It's not just one or the other, it's
Right,
both.
it's actually both. And I so appreciate that, you know, to the point of like, because both dimensions are real.
Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. That's good.
Oh, yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
No, it's, it's sort of like on Yom Kippur, people go up to the ark,
Right.
and I stopped doing that, because all I could think when I go up to the ark to pray is I'm thinking about people watching me going up and how,
Oh, it
and
is,
being,
yeah.
and how religious I'm looking. And I thought
Yeah.
myself, hey, that's not really a very useful thing for me personally to do that.
Right. I hear you. Totally
I
hear
mean,
you.
I wish I could be that person who could go up and just be like, oh, I'm just so,
Right, like have the blinders on. Yeah.
yeah, but I'm not.
Well, that's the other piece too, right? Each of us needs something different,
Yeah.
right? Just a part of it. So.
Yeah. Anyway, you've got somebody else who wants to.
Shabbat shalom.
No, you're not.
Always lovely to see you.
Thank you.
Hi, Shabbat shalom. How are you?
My name is Micah.
Hi, Micah.
This is my first time.
Oh, wonderful. Welcome. How was it for you?
It was a little fast. I also noticed there was a Guns N' Roses song thrown in there.
So the cantor is a huge rock fan.
Yeah.
And so he leaves some like Tears for Fears,
Yeah,
Kiss,
so
Guns N'
cool.
Roses.
It was just funny because I was following her and then she was the same through like, I know, wait a minute, I know that song. What is it? And I'm like, wait a minute, I know that song. I scared the person next to me. Crap, I know that
I
song.
know it was very
But I want to thank you for myself.
Oh, wonderful. I'm so glad.
I'm converting.
That's so exciting. Okay, how's that going so far? It can be a process.
No, because my dad's died of cancer, and so I had to take some time off from classes. I've taken 4 classes, and then I'm starting them again in the winter because I can't drive because I'm blind, so I keep going to different synagogues to go in person. Take one of the classes.
Where do you live?
In the southeast side.
Oh, in Southeast, okay.
I used to go to Charlotte,
Sure,
but
yeah.
literally up until last week, I've had some bad experiences with some of the people there that have also converted.
Oh, interesting.
Treated me
Really?
badly, because I come from a Christian family, so I have God in my heart already, I have God in my heart, and I love the scriptures, I love Torah, and, you know, singing and worship, and I see God in a very worshipful, loving, Father kind of way. And,
Very devotional.
yeah, I was raised, you know, to love God, and I was raised with Him in my heart, and I had some really bad experiences with 3 people there, and I know that I was raised Southern Baptist.
Wow, okay, so that's pretty.
Yeah, and one of the things that we learned very quickly growing up in Southern Baptist churches, Southern Baptist ladies talk a lot, and will talk about you,
Oh,
and you don't
yes.
even know, because they'll be really nice, and share sweet tea, and they will love you to death,
Right.
and say, bless your heart, and you have no idea that they're talking about you.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and they're not talking badly, they're just talking, you know, and so I grew up just talking, you know, and, one of the people there, is a convert as well, and she lied to me and told me she was born Jewish, and, the rabbi had to correct me in private and say, no, she's not, she was born.
Interesting. Yeah,
And
it's
she
hard,
told me I
it's
can't say
complicated
God
stuff.
as a Jew, sound a lot like I did before I started Teachable years ago, if that helps.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
Yeah, I'm getting top surgery in August after waiting 12 years.
How are you feeling coming to that? August is nearby.
After 18 years of having them, I don't know what I'm gonna do when they're not there anymore. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna feel, because that's a big change. And,
Yeah.
but Rabbi Oregon wanted to push my mikvah back to February. That way I was a
Sure.
short healed.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
And so I wanted to talk to Rabbi Posen about that because
Sure.
I was already on the path to the mikvah.
Yes.
I'm already connected to community. It's just I was switching communities in a way, I think. So
And I think, yeah, Rabbi Cousin will really be able to hear all of that and
yeah,
to go.
I'm just somebody had here asked me, why do you want to become Jewish? And I said, because I was supposed to be.
Oh my
And because I feel like God has been leading me here my whole life.
It's where you belong.
Yeah, and I've always said it's like a house I didn't know I was family in until God opened the door himself and said, come on in. And I said, okay. And I have Halloween at home that I fudge a little bit because I don't always have the money to make 2 loaves. So I slice a loaf in half.
You know what?
I made my first honey-soaked raisin loaf today.
Oh, that sounds
Yeah,
delicious.
I did the creamed honey with golden raisins and a fourth of a cup of cran apple juice and soaked it for like 10
That sounds
minutes.
amazing.
I can show you a picture actually.
That sounds great.
You want it?
Yeah.
I know we're not supposed to have our phones on.
It's okay. And then I have to go.
Yeah,
I apologize. But
Yeah, no worries.
and Micah, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
I just recently got it newly changed to my good Hebrew. And it's
Oh, those
sort
are
of
great names.
Rabbi Oren goes, you don't even have to change your name after the mikvah. He goes, you're already Hebrew.
I mean,
He goes,
and
that's
those
easier work for us.
Those are such great names. Those are such great names.
I chose it because it's who God is with us and who is like God in Hebrew. And I just felt really connected to that, and it just felt kind of like a natural thing to becoming.
And I don't know if you've had the chance to study the prophet Micah, but
I love that. It's one of my favorite Bible books.
yes.
I plan to get is it JPS?
JPS, that's right,
The
Jewish
Tanakh.
Publication Society. That's right.
I plan to get their student Tanakh so I can actually read from it.
And I think something I would
I
recommend
have some
too.
old Bible tabs that I'm going to put on the books so I
There
can
you
find
go.
where I'm going.
Also, the Jewish Study Bible, which is actually done by Oxford, is really
Oh, I love the
excellent.
Oxford.
So
When I
there's
was
a Jewish Oxford.
Christian, I used to love the Oxford Study Bibles. They're so well done.
Yes, so the Jewish Study Bible has so many great commentaries and articles from Jewish scholars, so I think you'd enjoy it.
I know that there's actually, recently I found out there's a Bible translation for Christians that was compiled by Jewish scholars,
Interesting.
Christians of all walks of Christianity, and atheist religious scholars all
Fascinating.
together.
That's cool.
Isn't that cool?
Very cool.
This is
Oh
what
my
it looked
goodness,
like.
look at that.
I
Oh my
brush it
goodness.
with kosher margarine.
There you
because
go.
It's imperial margarine because it
Fantastic.
kind of offsets the sweetness.
Oh, that's great.
So it looked really pretty. And then it no longer looked pretty.
Oh, well, that's great though. That's quite the
But it's
transformation.
really good. It's the golden raisins that got really nice.
Oh,
and-
That sounds
Yeah.
wonderful.
So I
Well,
have
Micah,
to-
I'm so glad you introduced yourself.
Yeah.
And
I've
so
been
you're
told
meeting
this
with
is a
Rabbi,
large
with Rabbi Moses?
congregation.
Yes, it's a pretty big congregation.
I'm worried about feeling lost.
So-
getting a little lost in the crowd.
So
Charity Tour is so small.
Right. So I think, whenever there's a bar or bat mitzvah or bar mitzvah, that can be a little tricky. So tomorrow will be oddly ordinary. Not every week is like that. So,
My partner